We're back on the world where we live. Now, we told you we'd have some diversity of opinion. And here I have Miss Georgie Malone. She is a dyed-in-the-wool Trump non-supporter. I have to, I have to reiterate again, while I support Trump's main vision and ideology, I do not necessarily like anything else about him. But Georgie, please tell us, why, if you were in America today casting a vote, why would it be for Joe Biden and not President Trump?
Look, it's the best of two evils, really, isn't it, Jared? So yesterday, watching Washington D.C. being boarded up before an election, and I'm old enough to have lived through probably, I don't know, it's every 8 years is an election, is it? I'm 52.
4 years.
4 years?
3 in
Well,
New
they
Zealand.
get it, yeah, 4 years. I'm thinking of Obama
Well,
had 8 years, and I'm
apparently
thinking,
8 years if the Republicans were.
Yeah. For every 4 years, so do the math. I have never seen a build up to an election like it, and it's scary. Not so much scary for us, we're down the other end of the world, it doesn't really matter. Shops being boarded up. I heard a report somewhere, I can't quote it, some Kiwis being told to maybe go home.
Well, I think
For an American election.
Well, I think a lot of that it speaks to what I mentioned before, is the hyper-partisanship on both sides. And it's not the fault of the Democrats or the Republicans. It's the fact that neither side is prepared mentally and emotionally to face their side losing.
Yeah, but that's never happened before, really, has it?
Well,
You
it
have
happened in
never had
2016.
with Trump. Well, when he was, no one in their wildest dreams thought it was going to happen, Jared.
The media made a massive deal saying and thinking that Trump supporters, if Trump lost, and specifically, and Trump did fuel this, I'll give you a free kick there. He did specifically say in the debate that he would not necessarily accept the outcome of the election. However, it was the pundits in the media saying that, if Trump loses, what's to say his supporters aren't going to raise hell. The night happened. The votes were counted. Trump had won, and it was the Democrats that were raising hell. And there was even quite a funny cartoon about it. The supporter of Hillary Clinton, on the one hand, so he's saying, "I believe it undermines our democracy, and it is abhorrent that Trump would say he would not accept the result of a democratic election." And in the other frame after the election, he's holding a Molotov cocktail saying, not my president. But certainly it is unusual. It is absolutely unusual.
Well, I think you might find it almost unprecedented, really.
Unprecedented.
Pardon the pun. Reports that I've been hearing, albeit though, Jared, on CNN and, of Americans actually going to vote into polling booths, and for Trump telling his supporters to watch these voters and to watch the officials. That to me, the president instructing his supporters to watch other Americans voting?
Fair enough.
Is that a democracy? That is a directive from POTUS.
It is absolutely right. And
is that right?
No.
Should he be engaging in behaviour at a polling booth?
No, he shouldn't.
Biggest democracy in the world?
Okay. No, he shouldn't. I don't believe for a minute. I've never believed
Why
that Trump's perfect.
is he doing that?
I believe Trump is doing that because the media, the mainstream media in America, before he was even elected to be president, have not only shown unmitigated bias against the president, but there was even a memo at the very beginning from the head of the Washington Post. His name escapes me, and it basically read, and it went out to all the major news networks, NBC, CBS, etc. After Trump had won, he said, when dealing with a candidate like Trump, who isn't afraid to tell lies, distort the truth, say anything to get elected, does fairness even apply? Should we even be fair and unbiased in our coverage of his administration? And it was basically saying that, no, we shouldn't. We should not treat... Trump isn't fair with us and with the truth, so we shouldn't be fair on him. So the US media has been unashamedly against Trump the entire time. And when you look at it in that context, yeah, I see why Trump would want to say, oh, I don't want things being rigged against me, when he knows all of the media and all the coverage, with the exception of Fox News and the other nutters, has absolutely been rigged against it. When he says, oh, that's fake news and everything, you're making that up, they made up the Russia scandal, they made up the Stormy Daniels scandal, they chased everything.
They made up Stormy Daniels?
There was no evidence of it. He sued her for slander, and she's now going about her trade to pay his legal fees. Hey, I'm not saying it was
It's called
wrong.
misogyny, and it's called I'm bigger than you and I'll you over. He did, and he did. And he grabbed her by you-know-what as well, didn't he? This is the American president, Jared.
Everybody hates Trump. Do
Well,
you really
what
think
is he-
they wouldn't shelter somebody who
Loved
went
him on
against them?
Celebrity Apprentice.
That's another good point. He was actually the darling of the New York crowd and the elitists until he ran for president. There weren't accusations of racism and misogyny and things like that until after he was elected. After he started running for president, I should say.
So just another thing, just while we're here, just from what I've been watching, the rise of this. Well, you've got the Black Lives Matters after the George Floyd and what I believe is years and years and years of racial profiling. I wouldn't like to be black and live in America, put it that way. The rise of the white supremacists and the rise of the KKK, and they do seem to all hold Confederate flags. I hear a lot of these, see a lot of these rallies, which are in conjunction with the Black Lives Matter. With the Black Lives Matter, I see black t-shirts, black people, and black people protesting. With the Trump supporters that really don't like these you-know-what in my corner. I don't like these on my corner. And they've got Confederate flags and they're Trump supporters, every single one of them. White power, they're saying. It is so prevalent in America. We've just never seen it. Like Will Smith, the actor, said, it's always happened, now we can film it. And he doesn't shut it down. He knows who his supporters are.
So Will Smith might say one thing, but what would you think of Morgan Freeman's opinion? He doesn't necessarily see it the way Will Smith does.
Do you know, I saw that interview.
You mentioned the Ku Klux Klan in particular. Do you want to know how many members of the Ku Klux Klan there really are in America?
How would you know?
There's 8,000.
How would you know?
Because the Anti-Defamation League, who tracks right-wing, in particular, any kind of hate groups, and the Southern Poverty Law Center, who does exactly the same, have estimated the numbers as being anything between 3,000 and 8,000 people. That is in a country of over 300 million. There are white supremacists in America. There are racists. They
just don't wear the white pointy hats anymore, Jared.
They're
your judges, they're your cops, they're your teachers, they're your shop workers. Just don't wear the hat anymore.
So the current protests of Black Lives Matter are following a very similar vein to what occurred in Ferguson in 2015. That was under Obama's tenure.
Okay.
Basically, it was the same thing. A young black man was murdered by police, or shot by police. There was a very embellished story that was published. Apparently, he had his hands up and he told the policeman, don't shoot. None of this was true.
Okay.
He charged the policeman, and the cop would have been killed if he hadn't taken that sort of action. But anyway, the media portrayed it as being, and pushed this narrative that somehow white police, specifically, are stalking and murdering young black boys. It is when the fires settle, when the riots are over, and when they actually take stock and look at the statistics, the chances of a black man being murdered by any member of law enforcement is astronomically low.
Well,
by a white policeman in particular is even lower than that. The chances of being murdered by somebody else in that community, a civilian, is actually much higher.
are you saying black on black murders?
That is absolutely right.
Okay. I guess what really shocked me was 4 months ago, putting on the 6 o'clock news, watching a black man on my TV screen actually being murdered in front of my eyes. Being murdered. He had a knee.
That's right.
Yeah, murdered.
Yeah,
Killed
George
him.
Floyd.
And everybody watched, and the phones are out. He's
That's right.
looking round. Yeah.
And it was a horrible thing.
It was
and
a horrible
policeman
thing.
and his colleague who were involved in
Be
that are going to jail for a long time.
And live in America, and then talk to me. You go and really talk to them.
Well,
It's the racial profiling. Look, America is a fabulous country. Americans are fabulous people. I tell you what, anything happens in the world, earthquakes, Americans are the first there, aren't they? They're the first there with aid. They're the first there to help.
Oh, we saw Puerto Rico, certainly. Now,
Yeah.
do you think, in terms of the racial profiling and everything,
Yep.
do you see Trump as making this problem worse?
Yes,
Why do you feel that?
because he doesn't say anything about it. And these people are his troops. And I
In
believe...
what way has he not said anything
Because I
about
think
it?
if he... Well, let's take... I'm... A Black Lives Matter protest. Was it the governor in Illinois where the white supremacists stormed the governors with the guns and wanted to take, it was all to do with the Black Lives. So I've had a couple of vodkas. Black Lives Matter movement. To be honest with you, I don't really know the ins and outs, but.
Do you think Trump intentionally stokes racial protest, or
Totally.
is his method of speaking, his braggadocio, his general persona? I almost get
He's
the
calling
feeling,
his troops together.
I mean, that's what a lot of the narrative has been about. It's Trump's troops, There was a shooting that occurred.
And if he
it was,
loses?
many Hispanics were killed. Hispanic citizens were killed in the shooting.
When was this?
This was in 2018, I believe.
Okay.
Now, Trump goes to the hospital to meet with the survivors of the shooting. The media says that Trump's visit there was, quote, blowing a dog whistle to white supremacists in the area. If Trump didn't do anything, if he didn't attend things like that, and he didn't show any sort of attitude of caring for the survivors of a tragic shooting, the media would call him a racist anyway. So
He's got to do something. He is the president. He's got to pretend.
But if he does something, they just say he's throwing a racist dog whistle to the alt-right, to the white supremacists, to all of these buzzwords.
Because he is.
You think he is?
Totally.
Well, I don't.
He is a showman. He knows exactly where his support lies. He's got people working for him that are doing the numbers.
I
He
agree
knows
with you.
exactly.
He was on
what's
The
going
Apprentice.
on.
I don't like you. You didn't do a good job. You're fired.
And he was fantastic.
He certainly was.
He was fantastic because I watched about 3 or 4 episodes. I chose the one who I thought would win. They'd come to the board table. They'd sit in front of Trump. He'd say, no, you won because I think you're a genius.
Would you concede that Trump may be well-intentioned, but the way he goes about it...
No, I don't think he's well-intentioned at all.
You don't think so?
No. I
Well,
don't think the man's got any...
would you say it's awfully...
Excuse me.
It says a lot about the state of first of all, the human condition, but also the state of American society,
Yep.
that an enormous number of people
Yep.
still support him since 2016.
Yep.
And if there's one thing, the media have made a big deal of the fact that his approval rating has never been much above 40%. However, I think it's also relevant to state that it hasn't been much below 40%. If you look at all the other presidents through history, they had highs and lows, whereas Trump is remarkably more consistent.
Because
That's
Trump supporters, it's cult. It's cult-like. It's like Tamaki. It's
You
cult.
really believe that 62.5 million Americans
It's
are
just
brainwashed?
stupid, a lot of them are. There's a lot of people that are against him too, Jared. There's a lot of people that don't like him.
Absolutely, he's a
Yeah.
divisive figure.
Yeah, totally. There's a reason why.
He's a divisive figure. However,
He's
Trump-
not fit to be a president.
I see Trump as being a symptom of wider social problems in America.
Americans
Why-
love celebrity.
If
They love him because he's been on
if
TV.
they voted Trump in, what can it say about the state of the country? Really? If the Democrats had
Exactly.
President Obama,
Yeah.
if he laid the groundwork for this, if so many people felt disenfranchised and hard done by, and instead of trying to work with them or help their situation, if the Democrats sat by and did absolutely nothing, and that's what got Trump elected.
I think the
They're
Democrats
complicit
have.
in this as well.
I think the Democrats have not had a candidate that's that's electable. To be really honest with you, and I think that the same thing sort of happened in the National Party. I don't mean to bring it back to, but it's
Absolutely.
comparison that they had John Key, and then they've had Simon Bridges, they've had Todd Mueller, they've had Judith Collins. I don't think she'll be there for too long. Labor went through exactly the same thing after Helen Clark. We had Andrew Little, who stepped past. We had David Cunliffe. We had, you know, each party goes through it. And the Democrats lost it after Clinton. Clinton was damaged goods by the time he'd left. Hillary said, well, I want to be president. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, you're done. The Clintons are done. You used goods. You've had your time. And there has just not been a Democrat that is electable. I believe Michelle Obama.
Do you
She's the
think?
saviour.
Okay. If you were to choose between President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden, would you say he's electable enough for you to
Biden?
vote for over Trump?
No, the problem is with Biden, and I don't mean this in all disrespectfully or in ageist, but he is too old. That puts people off. There's been, you know, there's a smear going on that he might, you know, he's not that bright. Well, not that he's not that bright, but he can't string a sentence together, much like me after a couple of vodkas. That he is just too old. Yeah, I totally agree. I agree.
Would you vote for Biden?
Yep.
Not because you like him, even if you do think it's too old, but because the idea of another 4 years under President Trump would be just too unutterably horrible.
For minorities, yeah.
You would vote for him? You would vote for Joe Biden?
Yep.
Okay.
I would. Trump's got to go.
Well, an enormous number of people, and I think that is the appeal of Biden, and indeed that is
It's
the platform.
not Trump.
The platform the Democrats have been running. The sky is falling,
Yes.
and it's because of Trump.
Yeah.
This is not a legitimate platform to run on. Let's be honest. You have to have somebody
So
who would
having
actually
people
make
watching
the
you vote and calling your troops to watch people watch you and voting, your fellow citizens.
Is Trump's rhetoric much different to the mainstream media's rhetoric against Trump, though?
Gosh, that's such a good question, Jared.
There was a Democratic senator, her name escapes me, but she put on her Twitter feed a picture of her holding up the severed head of President Donald Trump.
Oh, you're talking about Kathy Griffin,
Kathy Griffin?
the comedian. Yeah. And
So,
yeah.
if that sort of imagery is celebrated because they don't like Trump, why is it such a problem if Trump says things?
One thing, she appeared in that image, lost her career.
I would hope so.
She lost her career. She lost everything.
Because it isn't professional, but at the same time,
Because
a lot
it's
of
a
people support it.
grotesque image of anybody. Love Trump or hate Trump, Trump has a young son and a family, and I thought that was below the belt. She
So did I.
deserved everything she got.
Certainly.
Yeah. Americans love the shock value. Howard Stern, their comedians.
Norm Macdonald.
Oh, they love the shock value. But sometimes it really bites them in the ass, and I thought that just wasn't a classy act at all. I was offended by it, and I hate Trump. I wouldn't like Barron to see that. I wouldn't like Tiffany to see that. Do you know what I'm saying?
So, in conclusion, say we have another 4 years of President Trump.
Yeah.
If you could give him any message personally, any advice, anything at all, what he could do differently, what he could continue doing, what he could do better, what would you say to him?
Keep going on. Keep doing what you're doing. It is the best show in town.
Well, I guess he isn't all bad then. He's fun for us to watch.
Love you, Jared.
So, bit of an update. We know now that Trump has probably won Kansas, Pennsylvania, and I believe they called Kentucky and Texas for him as well. So, the time now is about 6:45, and we will have another update soon. Thank you very much, Georgie, for joining us.
Pleasure.
We can still get on even if we don't see things.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.